This week on Supercars Talk, I skip reviewing the Bend and talk about some news instead. As I mentioned last time, sometimes life events get in the way of Supercars events. And although I didn't organise my wedding on the weekend of a Supercars event, my honeymoon did kind of overlap a bit. And unfortunately, our internet connection where we were staying wasn't quite good enough to stream. There was some geolocation blocking problems as well. I did get to watch one of the practice sessions. Practice 4 was actually streamed live over YouTube in the country, but trying to get an actual trying to watch the race, and I did see a couple of highlights that were posted on Facebook and things like that, but I thought better off. I just got back it was this morning, doing a quick news video today to get something out this week. I figured rather than kind of rush through, I'll sit down later, watch the races properly, take some proper notes like I usually do, and put a proper review in for next week. We don't have to fear though, because there has actually been a bit of news over the week. One of the first ones, which is it's kind of a non-event, but it is not an event in the actual announcement, but it is big news. Lowndes has signed a contract extension for 2 years with Triple Eight. So his contract, I think, was actually up at the end of this year, and then he pulled the pin on his driving career early, depending on who you talk to. Some say it was pushed. I personally think that the story that was kind of going around, where he decided kind of mid the year before, where his results weren't really good, that maybe it's time to step back, and then with having the good results last year again, that it's kind of he's not getting any younger, so he went out on a high, and he definitely did that with winning Bathurst. Anyway, so he did have a contract with Triple Eight for this year, which they turned into, instead of a full-time driving contract, they turned it into a enduro co-driver contract. But now he's signed on for another 2 years with Triple Eight. So yeah, him and Whincup can go and win the next 3 Bathursts together, and I think that he's got 6, so that would bring him to 9, equal with Brocky. Having said that though, I haven't actually watched the racing, but what I saw, apparently Triple Eight was struggling over the weekend, which brings us to another bit of news. Apparently Roland Dane's complaining that Mustang has a definite advantage, things like that. Once again, this stupid parody all year. It is getting pretty boring. Apparently the Mustangs did do well over the weekend. But you look at it and you go, well, it's hard because it is only 2 teams, and from what we can see, basically Scotty's up there at the top all the time, and it's not like it's just Mustang 1 to 6, no question. Coulthard seems to be back a bit, and Coulthard's not a bad driver. He's got the same car as Scotty in that. He hasn't got Ludo, but that's the big key in this, I think, is Ludo. And I think that Triple Eight probably underestimated the changing from the twin spring, or the multiple spring, or whatever you call it, to the single or linear spring this year. I think they probably underestimated that change, and I think this is the first big change since Ludo's been gone. They did go from the VF to the ZB. It's a bit of an aero kit kind of change. I think this spring thing's probably a bigger change for them, and they were, from what I've heard, they were kind of light years ahead of everybody else with the multiple springs. So, their best toy's been taken away, and I think it's taken them a long time to adjust, and I think without Ludo there, they are struggling to get their heads around it. And it hasn't helped that then, obviously, Scott and Ludo have gone on to another level, and all of a sudden, instead of, there being Triple Eight and Erebus and that kind of right behind Penske, it's, the Tickford guys are kind of taking up that mantle. So it makes it look like the Mustangs are doing better than what they were. But, if you put Triple Eight back in there kind of thing, all of a sudden, it wouldn't look so much like a Mustang show as what it does at the moment. So that's shut up, Roland, go and build a better car. Isn't that what you told the Penske boys at the start of last year? Next year, we're going to see an endurance round at the Bend. Traditionally, we've seen a 500k endurance race at Sandown before Bathurst in September. Did go to Queensland Raceway for a few years, and I went to Phillip Island for a few years. Kind of traditionalists got a bit involved again, and it went back to Sandown, and that's kind of been its home forever. This year it's moved to November. Some crazy supercars idea, I think, probably to get it away from kind of the football in Melbourne at that time of year with the finals and that. Anyway, teams and that weren't happy because Sandown's always been a bit of a warm-up for Bathurst. So anyway, next year we're going to see an enduro at the Bend before Bathurst. That in theory is good. I don't think the Bend lends itself to endurance race. A lot of people are probably going to disagree with me, but if we recall back to when it was at Phillip Island, the cars kind of spread out and things like that. I think these shorter, tighter tracks with no runoff as well are better for the endurance races because you get crashes and stuff, and crashes mean you get safety cars, and it kind of bunches everyone back up together, and it's exciting. When you think about the best Bathurst finishes, it's usually when there's kind of a crash with 10, 15, 20 laps from the end, bunch everyone together and off they go at the end, nice and close. The ones where you kind of, the last 50 or so laps where they're all just, going for it, they're usually spread out a bit and you kind of know what's going to happen before the end. We don't want to see the entertainment car and stages or some junk that they have in NASCAR. But it's definitely good for our sport if there is a nice, tight, close finish, goes on the news or whatever when people are running around closely together. So I think what's best for the sport would probably be an endurance race at Sandown in September. Having failed that, Pukekohe, how good would that be for the New Zealand guys? But speaking of Pukekohe, it looks like they're going to be moved instead of being later in the year as the pre-Bathurst round this year. But it looks like they're going to be on Anzac Day weekend next year. Good. It did happen a few years ago. They had it over the Anzac long weekend. The only thing that is awkward about that is, it's a good time to go away when you have a few days off work. So, Easter and stuff, I can't remember if it was Anzac weekend or Easter weekend they were talking about. But anyway, these long weekend ones, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. It's a bit of a hard call. If people are away from homes, as I've just found out, when you're away, sometimes it is a bit hard to follow your favourite sport. On the livery watch, we've already seen what Percat's car is going to look like for Pukekohe. Blackwoods, they're kind of sponsoring on the car all the time. One of their New Zealand subsidiaries, I think it is, they're doing the car for over there. And we did see him run the Convenience X, or is it X Convenience? I suppose it depends which way the car was facing over the weekend. Once again, not bad BJR liveries. They do a pretty good job. And the final bit of breaking news for this week, this was actually only kind of announced this morning. James Courtney is definitely leaving Walkinshaws at the end of the year. So where's he going? My money's on a second car at Charlie's. I did mention it a few weeks ago, and all of a sudden over the weekend came the story that Charlie's talking a second car, blah, blah, blah. We put 2 and 2 together and get 5, but I think that's pretty much there. the big thing probably now is more who is actually going to sponsor that car, and then who's going to partner Chaz Mostert at Walkinshaws. Because, well, as I said, Walkinshaws losing both drivers for next year. It's not confirmed Pye's going, but yeah. A lot of people saying Dave Reynolds. I think he's probably using that as a little bit of a try and get a bit more money out of Erebus. My money at the moment is someone like Todd Hazelwood going there. You know, he's definitely, he's a good driver, and you know, he's out of contract, things like that. Although all of a sudden over the weekend it was also announced, you know, Newlon branding ended up on the side of the Matt Stone car, and all of a sudden they're like, yep, we're all good for next year. So does that mean we're definitely racing next year, or does that mean, yep, we're all good, we're going to sign Todd and off we go again? So a lot of silly season questions to be answered. This Courtney announcement probably, you know, puts more questions out there than answers. But I'm sure pieces will start to fall into place, and it's usually around now and around Bathurst and that you know, the deals all kind of, you know, there's a lot of talking that happens at the moment, and then the deals kind of, you know, get signed and announced towards the end of the year. So that's it for my quick news kind of wrap up for the weekend. I will, over the next couple of days, I will actually watch the racing from the weekend, and next week I'll have my review for it. So until next time, I'll see you later.
Put away your inhibitions, let the beast in you just get loose. We all young, wild, and